What do you say, everybody? Welcome to Bama Insider and the Bama Insider YouTube channel. I'm Mick Gillispie on a Sunday night. Going to take your calls, jumping on a little bit early. And I guess part of that is that I just feel like there's so much to talk about tonight. And I saw so many of you guys making comments in the comment section. So I know you're here. So keep doing that. Send the comments. Also call in 205-850-0883. Kyle Henderson is on assignment. He'll be celebrating his birthday tomorrow. And then, of course, he'll be back next week. But just me tonight, taking your calls. And look, there are so many different things going on in the world of college football. But like and subscribe. Hit the bell as you hang out with us. Like and subscribe. Make sure that you know when we go live on the air, whether it's our call-in shows like this or our coverage every single day of Alabama football, that you know it's coming and that you're a part of it. So great to have you on here tonight. Alabama winner yesterday, 42-35 in a game that they had to score a lot of points and were pushed by Arkansas, but they win the West with the game. And they take on Auburn this week, who lost to South Carolina. And that sets up the Iron Bowl right now. Auburn going the wrong direction. Alabama playing a lot of close games, but winning it. I see in the comment section already people saying, hey, Alabama won't win a national championship this year. Look, I'm at the point now where I want them to take care of Auburn first, and then we'll start looking at Georgia, and then we'll move on from there. So winning a national championship for this team, I think, is just too far ahead. I mean, and it's not just the rat poison. It's that they're in a battle for so many of these games that for them to be a national champion, they're going to have to just keep winning. And I feel like the only way they're going to do that is by playing their best every game and being focused on that game. I know I sound like Nick Saban, but that's where I am with this team right now. Give us a call at 205-850-0883. Dan Mullen, Florida coach, former Mississippi State coach, was fired by Florida today. Bad decision. Bad decision by Florida. This isn't the offseason where you want to be looking for a new head coach. There are just too many premier jobs out there. And they just gave Dan Mullen an extension. That feels a lot like when Alabama got rid of Gene Stallings or when Tennessee got rid of Philip Fulmer. Florida could be putting themselves in a spot, unless they hit a home run with this hire, where they stink for a long time. And I don't think that the program's in bad shape. I just think they lost a lot of talent last year and were dealing with injuries and other issues. And they just were close, but they weren't good enough. I think Dan Mullen's a really, really good coach. I know a lot of you guys want to talk about Alabama's assistant coaches, Pete Golding and Bill O'Brien. O'Brien rumored to be a head coaching candidate at LSU. Who knows? Maybe he ends up at Florida. Maybe he ends up somewhere in the Big Ten. If maybe Penn State goes and gets him back. If James Franklin takes another job. I mean, there's a lot to really chew on right now as far as just everything that's going on with Alabama football. But look, this is a call-in show. It's the Sunday night call-in show. I'm going to start and get on the phone lines right now. So we're going to go early and often tonight. Who's this, and where are you calling from?
Hey, Mick, it's Parker from Pensacola.
Parker, what's up, dude?
What's up? I mean, we clinched the SEC championship game, but it's so, in my opinion, I mean, it's hard to look past this Auburn game. Like, I'm so focused on this Alabama-Georgia game.
Well, look, a lot of people are. I mean, no one's even talking about Auburn. But if you lose that game to Auburn, I'm going to tell you something. You're going to hear about it. And it'll turn this season into not a good season.
So, okay, I got a big what if question. Is there I'm a what if kind of guy. You know, I'm like a worst case scenario kind of guy. But is there a way that if we lose a close one to Georgia, what is the committee going to do? Because, I mean, Georgia's in. Like, I mean, there's no way Georgia's in.
Parker, that is a great question. Alabama, you're saying Alabama takes care of Auburn in the Iron Bowl down on the Plains. That's this Saturday at 2:30. What happens?
239.
239. Right. Let me get that right. I'm going to pull up the standings right now. And you know what? I'm going to pull them up on Yahoo so we can all look at them together. Because I want to go through this. I mean, look, that's a good question. I don't think Alabama is out with 2 losses. I think it would be really tough, but I don't think that they're eliminated. And I guess when we look at
I mean, Georgia's in. Georgia's in.
Right. Although I don't feel like Alabama had a marquee win this year, though.
I hate to say it, but I mean, I want to prove everybody wrong, but we don't look like a championship team. We have to prove that we deserve that number 2 spot.
Right. Well, look,
and that's coming from a huge Alabama fan.
Well, all right. So here it is right here. All right. Let's go through it. I'm going to widen it up for everyone. And we'll just roll down the line. All right. So here we go. We got Georgia. They're playing a terrible Georgia Tech team. They're going to win, right? Then they play Alabama in the SEC championship. Alabama's number 2. They play Auburn. That could be a tough game, although Auburn didn't look good offensively yesterday. You know, they'll play Alabama tough. At least you think so. Alabama wins that. They lose to Georgia. They got 2 losses. This hasn't been updated yet, but Oregon's out. They got creamed by Utah. Ohio State is going to be 2nd or 3rd after the way that they dismantled Mississippi. How about Michigan State? They play Michigan this week, so it's going to eliminate Michigan or Ohio State. I thought Cincinnati would lose. They had one of their best games of the season, a 48-14 win over SMU. Don't forget that they're going to have to play Houston in their championship game. They win that, I think they're in. Michigan State's out. Notre Dame's kind of creeping around in the back. And if Oklahoma State beats Oklahoma, all of a sudden they're kind of in the mix. But honestly, a 2-loss Alabama team that theoretically, Parker, loses a close game to Georgia, a team that has only played 1 close game all year, I could possibly see that getting Alabama in. I don't know, but I kind of feel like you feel right now. Whereas even if Alabama got in, I don't know that they could. I don't know that they could win the whole thing this year.
Yeah, and I mean, we got to focus. You know, we just, as much as I want to look past this Auburn game, it's just hard because everybody is just, I don't know. It's tough because Bama's going to go in do you think we're going to go in as a touchdown underdog? I mean, is Vegas saying anything about the line for the SEC championship game?
What I saw was it was around 3, Georgia favorite. I think that it could be a lot more because I think so many people are going to throw money on Georgia. I could see it going all the way to 10.
I mean, I was hoping it would be at like 4. You know, I would love to be a 4-point underdog and then win like 30. Like, do you think it's going to be a high scoring? Like, do you think like it's going to be like a 35-31 type matchup?
You know, a couple things. I'm not impressed with Alabama's running backs. I think Brian Robinson has done a really good job of being the best he can be, but he's just not explosive. He's not able to really take basically he's really not able to hit home runs. He's just not a home run hitter. He's a good running back, but he's not a home run hitter. And explosive plays, you got to have them at all those positions. So that's something that kind of worries me about the team. I think the offensive line took a step forward, and they're gonna have to have that. I mean, or they're not going to beat Georgia. I mean, let's just kind of throw that out there. I mean, that's
the committee is not gonna. Okay, the committee would not do this. What I'm about to say. Do you think? Like, what I'm thinking is, if we lose a close one to Georgia, they're not going to drop Bama from 2 to 4 and then make us play each other again in the semis. You don't think that's going to happen, right?
I think how about this? What if Alabama beat Georgia? Here's a scenario. I'm going to give you a scenario where Alabama could win the national championship. I don't think they can beat Georgia twice. I don't even know if they can beat them once, but I think it's possible. I think they have the best chance of beating Georgia of any team that is, that's in the field right now, and that includes Ohio State. Alabama gets by Auburn, and somehow they beat Georgia. They're going into the playoff as the number 1 seed. So now all of a sudden, Georgia drops back to 3. They play the 2-3 game. Bama plays 4. Say that's Cincinnati. They'll curb stomp them. And then they'll play. And I don't even think that'll be that tough of a game for Alabama. And then they'll beat. Then they play the winner of whoever Georgia's playing, right? And say Georgia gets upset and Alabama. I mean, that's the scenario. It almost reminds me of the Dallas Cowboys had a team one year. Barry Switzer was the head coach. And they just knew how to win. They weren't the best team, but they did win the Super Bowl. They beat the Steelers in the Super Bowl. They couldn't beat the 49ers, but they didn't play the 49ers because Green Bay beat them, and they had Brett Favre's number, and they just kind of danced their way to the Super Bowl. And that was the last Super Bowl that they won. But I didn't think they were the best team. I just thought that things kind of just fell in their lap. It was a much better matchup against Green Bay. They wouldn't have beaten San Francisco. The Steelers didn't realize they could beat them until it was too late. They didn't have very good coaching. They got Jimmy Johnson had left. Maybe it's the same thing here. I'm not saying that it's bad coaching, but Alabama, they're as weak at running back as I ever remember them because of the injuries. I don't remember Alabama having this week of a running back room since Mike Shula. I mean, and it's because of injuries. It's not recruiting. And maybe, honestly, I mean, there were some Mike Shula teams that the running back room was better than this right now. And I'm not the only one saying that. I heard from some former Alabama players in the NFL, and they were kind of saying the same thing to me, off the record. But so they're not impressed with that. The offensive line's got to get a little bit better. Jamison Williams has been great. John Mechie's been good. And then after that, we need a little bit more out of the third receiver. Slade Bolden made a couple of really good catches. The defense got shredded at times yesterday, but the pass rush seems to be there at times. The defense is basically like Jekyll and Hyde. They do just enough when they have to. And so all I'm saying is to win the national championship, everything's going to have to fall their way. They just don't look like a national championship team to me. Now they're really good, right? I mean, they're 10-1.
Yeah.
But I see the same thing. I also see this team competing, and I think next year, and I'm not hoping that we're looking at next year yet, but I just think that the stars align a lot better for Alabama next year when everyone's a year older, and then all of a sudden you get to start bringing in some of these blue chip guys that you're recruiting now, and then maybe some of the guys that haven't played this year will slide up into those spots. And as I move on the phone lines here in a second, Parker, one of the callers last night was like, he's worried about the upperclassmen that stick around finding playing time. I think that's a very big concern because the competition is only going to get tougher. And the upperclassmen on this team, for the most part, are, they're mediocre. They're just not game changers. And that's probably why they're not in the NFL.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, we got to take it one game at a time. And, I mean, we got to, Bo Nix is out for the rest of the season. I mean, that's just, I feel so bad about Bo getting injured, but,
all right, guys.
Hey, Mick, I was trying to find the YouTube stream on the thing, and I couldn't find it.
On tonight's show?
Yeah.
Well, we're on there right now.
Okay, because what do I search for on YouTube? I usually get a notification.
Yeah, Bama Insider. Just go to Bama Insider, and yeah, we're live right now. I mean, I'm looking at it. We got 171 people hanging out with us. But anyway, Parker, I'm going to get back to the phones, man. Great to hear from you. Anything else before I bounce off to the next caller?
I just roll tide. I mean, we got to play big boy football. Big week,
Parker. Big week. Anytime you play Auburn.
Have a happy Thanksgiving.
Hey, have a happy Thanksgiving, man. Thank you for calling in. All right, let's go right back to the phones. Thanks. Always great to hear from Parker down in Pensacola, getting us started tonight. And this show is all about you guys to call in and let's talk Alabama football. Who's this and where you calling from?
It is Daryl from Huntsville.
Hey, what's up, Daryl?
Hey, man, it's a great day. Great day. Wasn't the most satisfying victory, but victory is victory. There's no, as Douglas MacArthur said before Congress in 1952, I do believe there's no substitute for victory. So it wasn't the best. Could have been worse. We just have to admit something. We got to admit that our defense is not going to get any better. No doubt about it. Did I lose you?
No, I'm just listening. I mean, I'm locked in here, Daryl.
Yeah, the defense is not going to. I heard Coach Saban say this 4 weeks in a row. There's some things we need to fix, and we can get them fixed. And all I see is no improvement. I see no anybody. I mean, the George, the offensive lineman, they finally set down Chris Owens, thankfully. He didn't have a best game, but it was his first game, so I'm going to give him a pass. Bill O'Brien, I'm going to give him some credit. He came up with some innovations last night. When you saw the tight end line up at a wing, they pull a tight end and pull a guard. That play was successful all night. I don't know why we stopped running. It was successful all night long. And we gotta go out here and be honest with ourselves, look ourselves in the face, and say, you know what? If we continue to play games like this, we'll slip up sooner or later and get beat. And if we don't go out here with all our eyes crossed, our T's crossed, and our I's dotted, Auburn will beat us. Believe it or not, because we know that they're going to that they at the witch doctor right now, and they getting up all the spells they can. So we might as well face it. And again, now what really annoyed me last night was two things. One, we're too loose with the ball. Latu's always you just caught a pass with 5 people in front of you, 2 people in front of you, 3 people behind you. Why don't you lock the ball down and get to the ground? Jamison Williams is loose with the ball when he's in traffic. So we gotta think the game. We gotta not only play the game, you have to think the game. Assume somebody's there, even if they're not. You don't know.
Right.
Because you're taught to run to the ball. That's what you're taught. I don't care if you're 20 yards behind the play, run. And Offensive line, I think George can get better. Like I said, it was his first game, so I'm gonna give him a little leeway.
Right.
And see what really hurts us is Brian is not explosive. He's just he's a plodder. There's no insult to him. That's just the truth. That's who he is. He's a plodder and a banger. So we got to get to the point where we can get somebody, and Leary's supposed to have world-class speed. We need some, and like you said, maybe we even need to bring in Milroe and shift and put Bryce out on the wing, out on the end, and let Milroe run a draw or trap or something.
Right.
We got to have some explosion at running back.
Hey,
and
I
was glad to see. Go ahead.
Well, look, first off, thank you, Spencer, for the super chat. Roll Tide, man. Thanks for watching tonight. Secondly, I agree. I mean, it's time to be creative. Look, I get it. I mean, the quarterback had over 500 yards passing, and Alabama moved the ball. But and Brian Robinson was no slouch yesterday. But it would be nice.
Right.
It would be nice to get Milroe involved. I mean, at this point, I hope that they're doing something, because they might not need it against Auburn, but they're going to run into that game against Georgia, and they're going to need something. And I just hope they're creative enough to go down swinging. I mean, look at Arkansas. They lost the football game, but with the fake punts and everything else that they did yesterday, they went down. They went down swinging. They opened up the book.
You got to expect that.
Yeah,
you got to expect that, and they did what they should have done, because that was the only chance that they had to win the game. And I agree wholeheartedly with you. Alabama, I'm not overlooking Georgia. They can beat Georgia, but they got to come to play all out. Number one. That means no drop passes. That means no false starts. You can't get in the hole. You got to win on first down. You got to have at least 4 or 5 yards on first down. Because if it gets to a slugfest, our defense is not going to be able to hold up, because they're going to run the ball. Georgia's not going to go away from the run. They're going to run the ball, and they also are on defense. They are going to blitz.
Mm-hmm.
If you go back and look at those packages, again, I pretty much had it with our coordinator, and I'm gonna tell you the play that finally got me off of his bandwagon, and it's time to get something out here. And that is, it's 3rd and 15. You go to a 3-man line, and you play a soft zone and drop back, and the guy runs a quarterback draw and runs for 15 yards.
Yeah.
No excuse for that. None whatsoever. None whatsoever. And it's time, like you said, for innovation. The blitz packages that he runs, they're easily picking that up. They finally went away from the old Steelers blitz, where they brought the 2 linebackers and looped the linebackers. Each linebacker looped into the center, and one would either pick off the center and come through the slip into the guard, and that was being picked up regular. And he finally went away from that. So Alabama can beat Georgia, but Alabama to beat Georgia is going to have to be Alabama,
right.
Not this facsimile of the Crimson Tide. They're gonna have to go out there and play with pride, because Georgia's, the one thing we hope for Georgia is they'll be overconfident. Because they really they don't want to beat us. They want to destroy us. Kirby's mentality is I want to see Alabama embarrassed.
Right.
And we can take advantage of that.
Yep.
If we come out and play as Alabama.
Yep. No doubt. I agree with that.
Yeah.
But what about Auburn, though? I mean, are you worried about Auburn at all, Daryl?
I am worried about Auburn because Auburn will play. If Auburn doesn't do anything else, Auburn will always. They can be 1-10, and they will play their best game of the year every time against Alabama. It's always been. I've been an Alabama fan since 1961.
Yeah.
And it's always been that way. And the reason they hated Coach Brown, they despise Coach Brown. The reason they despise Coach Brown because he dominated them.
Right.
That's why they call. I used to listen to the Paul Feinbaum show, and this guy but even back now he would call Bear Bryant a drunk. He was an old drunk. Well, he was a great old drunk.
Yeah, he was.
So we'll take that for who said it. But they despised Alabama, and they despised them because Paul Bryant dominated them. Now, Nick Saban has made, I'm going to say this, man, may draw some controversy, but you go back and look at it. Nick Saban has made some of his worst coaching decisions against Auburn.
Oh, I know. Look, I don't think anybody on here is going to argue with you. I mean, it's what is he, like 9-5 against them? I mean, the game that Cam Newton was there, they should have won that. The kick six game, it was like, how many of these games
should have won the overtime? The better team would have won.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing about it is, how many of these games have gotten close, and all of a sudden, what about the last time that they beat Alabama and they did that punt thing and outsmarted Alabama. Yeah, I mean, you're right. He's had his worst games against Auburn. Even some of the wins. I mean, 2009, it took that drive at the end of the game. Yeah.
Oh, that definitely was a game shouldn't even been close.
Yep. And the game that the game that Derrick Henry was a senior when he won his Heisman, they were ahead at halftime.
Yep. Yep. So yes, I'm worried about Auburn because I know. After they went out and puked on the field against South Carolina last night, they're looking for something to rally for next year. And you can bet after they went to the locker room last night, the first thing that came up is, hey, we got another game.
Right.
We got another game. We're gonna look at the film. We're gonna go out. We're gonna play like our hair's on fire.
Yeah.
Because Alabama's coming to town. And they will. I expect them to play the best game of the year.
Yep.
But if we play our best game of the year, we'll blow them out.
I know. That's what I hope happens.
Yeah, we have to realize we're Alabama. And that makes people mad. Oh, you're boasting, you're bragging. Well, there's always a standard. And the Alabama standard is we don't measure ourselves against anybody else. We measure ourselves against us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way it's always been. So I'm going to get off. Didn't get a chance to call you last week. I tried, and you had some great callers. You got a great show. And roll Tide, Mick.
Hey, roll Tide. Thank you, Daryl. Always great to hear from you up in Huntsville. And shows off to a great start. And big reason is you, Daryl. Thank you, man. Roll Tide.
Appreciate you.
So that's Daryl up in Huntsville. Guys, as you hang out with us, like and subscribe, hit the bell on Sunday night as we do the call-in show. And I'm going right back to the phone lines again because I want to hear what you guys think. Who's this and where are you calling from?
This is Jamari.
What's up, Jamari?
How you doing?
Good, man.
I'm in Montgomery, Alabama right now.
Okay.
I feel like Pete Golden. It's time for Pete Golden to go. I feel like the defense is kind of out of sorts. Really, you can tell because Henry told one of our veterans, he transferred. He looked confused, and he's a senior. I feel like whenever you're upperclassmen are confused, the packages just aren't, up to par. And we have linebackers going on, running back. He's been doing this for 2 years. But what I feel like we need to do is I feel like we need to move Brian Branch to safety. I feel like his natural position is safety. I feel like we need to move DeMarco Hellams to the other safety because he's more of a hitter than a secondary guy, and just take Jordan Battle completely out. And I feel like our two starting corners need to be Kool-Aid and Christian Leary. I feel like we need to go with the younger guys. If we're going to make mistakes, we're going to make mistakes with the guys who are more talented. I feel like go with the growing pains. Because Job and Jalen Allman, they were just not getting it done. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
I definitely feel like Bryce probably locked up the Heisman this week, though, for sure.
Well, C.J. Stroud had a great game against Michigan State, and then he's got the stage again this week when Michigan and Ohio State play, just because Michigan is a one-loss team just like they are. You know, both teams are 10-1, so I'll tell you what, Bryce didn't do anything to hurt his chances. I think it's a two-guy race right now, unless something crazy happens. I feel like the running back from Michigan State's out. He had a terrible game.
Yeah, he disqualified himself.
Yeah, so I mean, and it's Stroud and Bryce. I think Bryce needs to have a Heisman moment. Just that moment where he is fired up, makes a big play, shows some emotion, and I hope that happens. And look, I mean, he's going to have the opportunity against Georgia. He could win the Heisman against Georgia.
Absolutely, I think so as well. I think Jameson Williams has a really good chance to get the Biletnikoff this year as well. If you put up his stats, I don't really see any other receiver besides maybe the receiver from Arkansas, Burks, who's really had his numbers are up there, or probably one of those guys from Ohio State. I think Jameson Williams has a really good chance to get the Biletnikoff award too.
I think Jameson Williams is the biggest surprise of the season. I mean, who would have thought, with all the talent that Alabama was bringing back, that Jameson Williams was going to be the guy that, you know, just transferred in. And, Nick Saban said, hey, we needed someone to take the top off of the defense. He had 8 catches, 190 yards, and 3 touchdowns, including that 79-yard touchdown in yesterday's win. And I'm pulling up his numbers right now. I'm going to see if I can find his season numbers because I'm curious. Yeah, 59 catches, 1,200 yards plus, 13 touchdowns for him this year. And he averages about 20 and a half yards per catch.
He's a stud. You think he's going to the draft? You think he's coming back for another year?
I mean, I'm thinking that he's going to go into the NFL. I mean, if he gets the opportunity to do that, and I'm sure he will. I don't know where he'll be drafted, but I'm thinking at least in the second round, right?
Yeah, I think he played himself into the first round. I think he probably needs one more year, honestly, to show, because anybody can have that wonder year. I think he's going to come back, honestly. I wouldn't be surprised either, but I think he's probably going to come back. One question I'll go ahead and get off. Do you think we had any edge against Georgia? I'm not overlooking Auburn, all like the guy said. Auburn's still going to be a war, but I feel like we're just going to come down to the more talented. I think the Bo Nix injury kind of gave us an edge big time because that takes away that dual threat quarterback that kind of bothers us. But do you think, just looking at Alabama and Georgia, do you think we have any area where we can have an advantage against Georgia?
Well, we're going to have it. Yeah, Jamari, look, we're going to have a huge advantage at quarterback. Stetson Bennett or JD Daniels, they're not nearly as good as Bryce Young. They're not playing as good as him. They're not as good. Georgia's got a huge advantage at running back because of the injuries. Georgia's offensive line's been really good. Alabama's offensive line, it's I think Georgia has an advantage there. Defensive line, Georgia's got a great defensive line, but so does Alabama. But I got to give Georgia the edge in that spot. So I'm thinking quarterback's probably the biggest thing. But then Jameson Williams, he's the best receiver on the field, period, in that game.
Right. I think the secondary, the thing about Georgia's secondary, I think that might be their weakest part of their defense. I mean, their defense is loaded, but I think their secondary is probably the weakest part. So if we can get Bryce a little bit of time, that O-line have pick up on the blitzes and kind of control Jordan Davis, I think we can make some things happen in their secondary. I haven't really seen a real standout in their secondary. Like, we usually have that one first-round pick in the secondary. I don't really see it this year, so that might be one of our advantages. And I think defensively, we just have to really stop the run and force Stetson Bennett really to win them the game. And I feel like if we do that, we can put ourselves in a good position to win. Now, Stetson Bennett has gotten better. I will admit that. But I still don't think that Stetson Bennett is the quarterback that he can just say, hey, take us to the promised land. I think, I think that's what they're going to fall short of. Again, to be honest with you, I predicted that we're going to end up playing Georgia twice. We're going to play them in the SEC championship, and if everything goes, I think we're going to play them again in the national championship, honestly.
I hope you're right. Look, if Alabama beats Georgia and they take care of Auburn, they'd be the number one seed going into that playoff. I said this before. And whatever team is fourth is not going to be even close to Alabama or Georgia. So if it's Notre Dame, if it's Cincinnati, they're not going to be on the same caliber as Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State.
I do expect Alabama to fall a spot this week in the playoffs. I do think Alabama will end up being 3. I think they're going. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they put Ohio State at number 2 this week. I think it's going to be Georgia, Ohio State, Bama, and I think they're probably going to end up putting Cincinnati in, or because I don't really think they'll put Michigan. They can't put Michigan on top of Cincinnati, in my opinion. I think that helps Oklahoma a lot too. I think Oklahoma is definitely back in the picture. They can. I don't think they're going to end up beating Oklahoma State twice, but I think Oklahoma's definitely back in the picture. But then we just have to play a little bit better on defense. I think a lot of it kind of scares a lot of us because we're used to the dominating defenses, and we got to make it simple. I feel like the defense was getting better, but I feel like we definitely took a couple steps back yesterday, though. But the offense, I think we're going to have to outscore people this year.
Yeah. Hey, that's the truth. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, most definitely. I appreciate you for calling, Roll Tide.
Hey, thank you so much, Jamari. Great to talk to you. And I see the screen says Huntsville, but you're in Montgomery tonight. So thanks for calling in from the capital city of Alabama. And please do it again. We'll be on after the game, after the Iron Bowl on Saturday, and then always on Sunday night. So great call, man. Thank you. Roll Tide.
All right, appreciate it. Roll Tide.
All right, let's go back to the phone lines, guys. And I'm just trying to get to your calls. Like and subscribe as you hang out. It's your show Sunday night. Who's this and where are you calling from?
This is James from Mississippi.
What's up, James?
Hey, what's going on? It was horrible yesterday. I ain't going to hold you about anything like that of that nature. The defense really is out of sync. Even if we go back to listen to Nick Saban, you can hear Nick Saban saying that practices wasn't that good that we leading up to Arkansas, and it really showed on the field. Pretty much, hands down, Bryce is just keeping us in this race right now. Bryce in the offense. Offensively, yesterday, it looked good. Looked good on paper, but it was a lot of mistakes made on the offense, especially with the Bryce Young stack on that third down, and they put us out of field goal range, and just the offensive line is still not gelling, And Brian Robinson, he was okay, and the scheme wise for Bill O'Brien, even though we put up 42 in that scheme that he was running yesterday, I really just didn't agree with it for some reason, and using Trey Sanders more. We still have Trey Sanders and everything. I think we should have used him a lot more than what he used him yesterday, because Brian Robinson is really, like you said, like the taller thing you said, he's really not that explosive. And Trey Sanders has that capability of being an explosive back, even with the injury. And him coming off the injury that he had the last 2 years. We got to jail because we know now that we got Georgia coming up in 2 weeks. And really, we just can't take Auburn for life.
We can't take – look, Auburn's whole season now is beating Alabama. I mean, they have just absolutely crumbled You know, they blew it yesterday to South Carolina. I think with Bo Nix, they would have won that football game. But I don't know that you're going to really have to motivate Alabama to play Auburn. You know, it's like I think Nick Saban worked really hard last week to convince the team that Arkansas was a big game. I think that when you're the head coach at Alabama, trying to convince your team that Arkansas, who you've beaten, 16 straight games now or something, I mean, you know, that's the game you really got to be focused on. And Arkansas could have beat Alabama. I mean, they came in and showed that they got a lot of momentum in their program. They didn't win. And that's the bottom line. Look, they played a good game. They didn't win. And I think Sam Pittman's one of the best coaches in the league. I will listen to his press conference. You can watch it on our YouTube channel. But he's like, look, we came here to win and we didn't win. You know, it's like I watch Ed Orgeron. And, you know, you guys know, I mean, I've made fun of him for years. I think the guy's kind of a clown. Like the team loses and he's talking about that he thought their team was better. No, they weren't better. That's why they lost. And then they lost again. You know, it's like Sam Pittman's going to have he's very impressive. I'm thinking that he's going to have Arkansas as a contender here sometime soon. But the bottom line is that Nick Saban had to motivate Alabama to get ready. I think that's why he called out the fans. I think that's why he called out the team as far as entitlement and all that stuff. He doesn't need to do any of that this week because it's the Iron Bowl. You know, even though I don't even think it's really the Iron Bowl anymore because they don't play it in Birmingham, but it's still a huge rivalry game. We call it the Iron Bowl. We're going down there. They're going to have to be ready. And Auburn, I think if Alabama gets ahead of Auburn down there, that there's a chance that Auburn will roll over. You know, we've seen them do that before. Most of the time it's in Tuscaloosa, you know, when they lose by 30 or 40. But this is one of those seasons where it could happen. I just don't think Alabama's going to be motivated for this one.
Yeah, I think they will be too. It's just the main thing is coming out and being on one accord. And doing your assignments that you're supposed to do there to get on. If you just do your assignments, it brings a lot of tension down, and it brings a lot of non-word fans of Jordan Battle didn't make that chopper right there. Jordan Battle was out of assignment. You know, things like that of that nature. And this team is this Alabama team here is very undisciplined. And that's very uncharacteristic over Nick Saban team. It's very uncharacteristic that you got players playing out of position. You can't get the calls in a timely manner and everything. And I'm just not going to go against the coaches. I'm going to put it on the players too because they got to do their job too at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And everything, even though, you know, I said something about Bill O'Brien and, you know, I ain't even mention Pete Gold. I'm just not going to go there. but you know, it's just, this team here has the potential of being a great team. And it's just not shown. It's just not showing. And it goes back to what somebody was saying that we have mediocre players. I just don't believe we have mediocre players. It's just not. I just feel like it's a seniority thing that they're trying to do and it's not working.
Yeah,
you're gonna have to play the best player, like Terry Arnold or like Kool-Aid or even with the offensive line. Give J.C. Latham a shot. Give the Brockermeyer twins a shot.
Yep.
Gil, I know Damon George that was his first game, so I'm gonna give him a pass like the other callers did. But give some of the other freshmen, like the Corey Brooks, you know, even put Jalen Milroy at running back for the rest of the season to see how that goes. Because you got another quarterback coming in Ty Simpson. So it's like, you know, there's some things that's going on. And I think next year the competition is going to be even greater because of the blue chippers that we're going to have coming in if we get rest of the blue chippers like the Money Jack or Denver Harris or Trey Hunt. Or Earl Little Jr. in the secondary. You know, that's going to push for playing time and things like that of that nature. So I think the team is going to be great for the next. I look at it for the next 3 to 5 years. And we just got to put it together.
I agree. Look, I'm with you. You're exactly right. I wish that the competition was. I would love to see those guys in the Brockermeyers and J.C. Latham, and I mean whatever it's going to take for Alabama to put out their best offensive line. Nick Saban's really loyal. Chris Owens didn't play this week, or didn't start. So, obviously they watch the same thing that we see. It's just tough. He's a great kid. He's a scholar. He came in and helped you win the national championship last year. He was kind of like the Swiss Army knife of the offensive line and helped out last year. And the problem is that he's just, when you see him on a everyday basis, he's just really not good enough. And I'm sure for Nick Saban, it's hard to make those calls. I mean, remember, he got emotional when he had to put Tua in over Hurts, but it had to be done. Tua is just a better quarterback. I mean, bottom line is that Hurts had problems throwing the football in the pocket, and Tua was great at it.
Right, and see, that's the main thing at the end of the day. If you look at everything what's going around, even at the beginning of the season, I just didn't think Chris Owens was the right tackle, because if you look at the previous season, he played center in the playoffs.
Right.
I think you moved Dalcourt to a guard position, but you don't want to. It's just that seniority ship. He just didn't. Saban's very, very loyal on that seniority ship, but at this day and age, in the way college football is set, you got to play the best player. And you see how it took for him to, he went from Christopher Allen, then Drew Sanders, and now you got a freshman at Dallas Turner. And Drew Sanders has been cleared for weeks, but you still sticking with Dallas Turner at the hybrid linebacker end position. So he has to do that all the way around.
Right.
You got to do that all the way around on offense, even on special teams. Yeah, if the linebackers ain't pursuing like Christian Harris and here in Toto, they've been playing good, but they haven't been playing great. So when you look at everything, put competition at the linebacker spot, even though it may sound crazy, but to put the competition in there so they know, I may lose my spot this next week.
Mm-hmm.
Kendrick Blackshaw may come in and do what he has to do and secure his spot for the rest of the season. I think they were real lax. This team has real lax. Coming off a national championship, they are real lax. And it's just against Georgia, like I say, I do see them. They can beat them. They can beat them, but they're going to have to bring the A game.
Yeah.
It has to click right then and there.
That's right.
It's going to have to click from the start of the ball to the end of the football game. Because Georgia is no slouch.
Yeah.
Georgia is no slouch. Offensive line, they return most of their team, so they're going to be a well-oiled machine. So you're going to have to play Bama ball with Georgia and Atlanta. And from what we're looking at right now, it's looking skeptical about how confident in our boys that they're going to get it done, or in our boys that they're going to get it done.
Yeah. Look,
and they can do it both times, too.
They're going to have to play – Alabama's going to have to play Georgia like Florida played Alabama last year in the SEC championship game. And limit the mistakes. But, who would have thought that Florida would have came in there as good as that Alabama team was and just stood toe-to-toe with Alabama? That was the toughest game they played.
Yeah. Yeah, it really was. And it was the toughest game. I remember I was screaming at my TV because we'll get up 2 touchdowns, and next thing we know, we back within 3 or we back within a touchdown. Florida back within a touchdown of taking over the game. And just luck fell on our side at the end of the game. But luck need to fall on our side from the beginning of the game or the end of the game, because you're going to have to take Georgia out early.
Yeah.
Because you can't keep Georgia in. Because even with the quarterback situation that they have with JT Daniels in the backup has been playing excellent ball. And he was a starter last year in the Bama game.
Right.
Between Georgia and Alabama.
Yeah.
So he knows, when he comes in that game, he knows what he's going to have to do and what he did, because he did great in the first half, but in the second half, that's when he slipped up. He knows what he has to do to beat Bama now.
Yep.
So he's going to come with his A game, and they're going to make sure they're going to smother. But I just think, Bryce Young with Georgia, with the business team Georgia has, he's going to make smart decisions because he's a smart quarterback, and he's going to put the ball in the receiver's hands. It's just on us to catch it and on us to run the ball too. I think we need to play Trey Sanders a little bit more next against Auburn to get him ready for Georgia, because we need to go back to the split carries with the running backs. I know we don't want to risk injury, but that's what you put Christian Lair as an emergency running back in for.
Yep. Can you imagine what would happen if Brian Robinson got hurt? I mean, Trey Sanders has only had the ball. I mean, he's had like a dozen carries or something. I mean, like he has, and then it'd be him.
Yeah. I think they said in the game yesterday when in Arkansas, he only toted the ball before the game like 39 times for the whole year.
Right. So 24 carries. It'd be 24. Well, whatever, a case of carries.
Right. So, but this is a great show. I enjoy it. I thank y'all for letting me be on the show tonight. I rarely call because I like to listen to, what other people have to say about it. It's a great show. Y'all need to keep going. Keep blessing this team, blessing BamaInsider. Make sure that they, continue on doing what they're doing, because they are the true ones. They really coverage in Alabama football to the T.
Thank you.
So I thank you.
Hey, thanks, James. James from Mississippi, another great call tonight. We're going right back to the phones again. I want to get as many of your calls in as I can get to tonight. Who's this and where are you calling from?
What's up, Mick? This is Jarek from Buffalo.
Hey, what's up, Jarek?
Nothing much, man. Nothing much. Wanted to talk about real quick, kind of, I guess, the mentality and I guess the mindset of this football team real quick. We talk about Alabama's death, and we talk about, how this is an Alabama football team. And I kind of address, and other callers kind of address that, if you look at the defensive side of the ball, we talked about during the preseason that this was supposed to be the best Nick Saban defense that we've ever had. And, again, there's a reason why we kind of said it, why everyone kind of said it. And again, if you would have said during the preseason that, this defense was going to be where it's at, I would think that you're joking. I would think that you're lying about it, because, 12 of these players were playing in this national championship, and not just on special teams, but they were reserve players. Most of these guys were starters, especially on the defensive line, right? You would think that this was 2019 where we also had a struggling defense, but we can say, well, no, this was truly a young defense, because you had 7 freshmen that were playing, that were starting. You had guys like Jordan Battle, that was a true freshman, Justin Bogby, Byron Young, DJ Dale, right? These guys, you got Shane Lee and Christian Harris, 2 inside linebackers that were starting. And the problem that we talked about in 2019 was a lack of depth. We just had a lack of depth because of too many injuries. For this particular season, it boggles my mind, because it's not a depth issue. It's not even an experience issue. It's something about the mentality of this football team. And maybe probably the worst part about this team is the lack of is maybe having a vocal leader, right? I don't know if Will Anderson is a vocal guy. I don't know if some of these guys are vocal leadership. But the one thing that worried me that I never kind of talked about was the fact that Henry T immediately came in during the summer, and 2 weeks later we kept hearing that he was already one of the leaders of this football team. Well, even though Henry T is a junior, he's a junior transfer, he's a great prospect football player. That's a guy that's not been a part of this program. He's probably been there for like maybe a month or two, and he's already one of the leaders of your football team. when you have 10, 11, 12 dudes in that team that were national champions. These are guys that play on the defense. That's a problem. So maybe from a vocal standpoint, and just maybe from a mentality standpoint, as far as hunger and drive and just having that competitive edge, that's Alabama's main concern. I don't think that it is a personnel or a talent issue, because a lot of these players on this team are 4- and 5-star players. But when you look at Georgia, or even when you look at some of the past Alabama Crimson Tide teams that won national champions, they all had leadership. They all had the mentality and that focus to compete and get better in practice at a daily occurrence. And they all, and again, when you look at Georgia, right, when you have players arguing on the sideline because a team scored a touchdown, and you have Jordan Davis and Kobe Dean just and holding these players accountable and just yelling and arguing with each other, that's what Alabama used to be about.
Right.
Now when we allow like 20 or 27 points, we celebrate. We celebrate on the sideline. That's just not what I'm accustomed to seeing in a long time. That's Mike Shula level. That's Franchione type of level, where we used to kind of celebrate that type of mediocrity. But nowadays it's something that we lack. And can it be something that maybe, but it's something that we're just going to have to find out about against Auburn and potentially against Georgia.
Yeah, look, I know. I mean, it's a different world. I mean, this Georgia program has been a mirror image of Nick Saban's first, 10 years. And they play defense and they try to run the ball. And everything has fallen into place for Georgia this year. And the biggest thing is that they didn't get killed by guys leaving for the NFL like Alabama did. And then you could stick around and play another year if you wanted to because of COVID. So they're stacked. And then they went out and they took advantage of recruiting and the transfer portal, and they're hungry and they're motivated, and I think college football, besides them, has taken a step back. But their team's been just amazing. I mean, I think Alabama is the only team that can stop them. And the way that it sets up now is, they probably have to beat them twice. Can you imagine that? Not once, but twice.
Yeah. And, again, it's like it boggles my mind when you just talk about the experience factor that Georgia has, because we have that. Maybe not on the offensive side of the ball, but even what were our expectations about our offense in the preseason? That, they were going to be a respectable offense, but it was going to be nowhere near as great as it was last year. We expected this defense to play at a caliber level that, maybe not that Georgia's playing when they're allowing 6.5 points a game.
You're right.
But still, we expected an elite level, a high level where we see consistency, right? We're not just going to look at stats and sit up here and say, well, they're top 10 in this and top 5 in this. No, we're talking about consistency. That's honestly Alabama's biggest weakness of this year. It's inconsistency, right? One game, it's the defensive line that struggles. Another game, it's their secondary that struggles. Another game, it's tackling issues and the linebackers not stepping up and filling up holes. Right, offensively, it's your offensive line. It's the offensive line, mainly the right side of the offensive line. It's receivers and tight ends dropping passes, and it's a lack of play calling, a lack of creativity. Special teams will have their blunders on days. Right, when you look at some of the elite teams, well, really only one. Georgia's just been consistent.
Yep.
They know who they are as a football team. They have established that, and by Alabama, I think, is probably the only team that can beat them, because we all know that they have the personnel that they have the personnel that can do it. It's just, can they get that mentality right? Can they establish some type of consistency? And can they pull it together against Georgia? Maybe, but the likelihood of you finally just piecing it all together against a team that you beat last year and kind of ended their hopes of even going to the SC championship. I don't know. I just don't know.
Yeah, look, I think we're all kind of feeling like that right now. But here's the thing. Alabama's track record is that they're going to show up and they're going to rise to the occasion. And I would be surprised if they get to that game and they don't put up a performance. And I don't know that Georgia's offense is good enough to really take advantage of Alabama's defense like Arkansas. The teams that spread you out and go fast, Alabama just is always and have a mobile quarterback. Alabama's always had trouble with those teams. I mean, forever. I mean, since Nick Saban's been here, as great as he is, and he's the best that's ever walked on a sideline, that's the way you beat him.
Yeah, and you make a good point, is that stylistically, and this is why I'm saying, Bama still has that chance, and why I believe they're the only team that can beat them, because stylistically, this is what Alabama is made for Georgia. They're made for this game. If there's any coach that knows how to go against this aggressive, kind of suffocating style, it's Nick Saban. He knows how to go against it. He knows how to beat this. And Georgia is not a spread you out team. They're more of they establish the run. They establish dominance on the offensive line, and they simply just, again, they take care of the football. They settle with some play action. They may spread out maybe James Cook out wide and try to, have some matchup stylistically that can hurt your team. But, again, it's just, if Alabama's secondary can just play a little bit more consistent, and it can limit the big plays. If they can limit the big plays, I'm not too worried that Alabama's going to get dominated off the line of scrimmage, because simply Bama can crowd the box. They can crowd the box. I do believe that they have the players that can match Georgia's physicality. It's just being more consistent. And if you look at our defensive line, really they've only had maybe 2 or 3 games where they simply just did not win in the trenches.
Right.
And I can make an argument that even for the A&M game, they only allowed 93 yards rushing in that game. They played a lot better in the second half. So really the key strength for that game, their defense, it is their defensive line. It's really just if the linebackers can if they can be more consistent, plug up those holes and be there in the right positions along with the secondary, it then kind of falls back to your offense and saying, well, what can we have with our offense, right? Are we going to have a game where Bryce Young is going to struggle and he's going to get rattled and he's barely going to throw for 220 yards? Or can he have an efficient game like we saw against Arkansas or some of the other games where offensively they can move the chains? Receivers are not dropping passes. They can establish a little bit of a run game. Not saying Robinson's not going to rush, that he's going to rush for over 100 yards, but at least establish a threat in the running game. That game is going to have to be one with Bryce Young. But again, it's a game where everything is going to have to fall into place at Alabama, but it's not as hard to accomplish that, compared to what others have said that it's almost impossible right now to beat Georgia. It is still possible. It's the little things that they have to fix in order for them to beat them.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I look at the Big Ten right now and you just have to laugh. I mean, Ohio State, they beat up on Michigan. Michigan was the worst pass defense in the country, right? Ohio State lost to Oregon, who just got drummed, and it was at home. It wasn't even like they went on the road and played there. They were at home and got beat by them, and then you saw what Utah did to them. This is a 2-horse race right now. And Ohio State's like the 3rd team, and we saw what they did in the national championship game last year. We saw that. Once they get on the same field with the SEC, it looks like it's the same thing that we saw when they played Michigan State on Saturday. They're just overmatched. The problem that Alabama has against Georgia is that I just feel like Georgia has all of these guys. They're getting healthy. They survived the beginning of the year when they had a bunch of injuries. They're getting healthy right now, and Alabama just keeps losing running backs. The offensive line looked better to me this week, but let me say this to you, Jarek. You'll get this. Brian Robinson at running back is like the Blake Sims of quarterback. It's like, oh my God, yeah. I mean, you get what I'm saying? It's not that he's terrible. He's not. He's good, but he's not elite.
I would say he's Jacob Coker, me personally. I think he's more Jacob Coker, because at least Jacob Coker was a big quarterback that had a lot of power, especially when he ran. Blake Sims was more finesse, more elusive. So I would personally say Jiggy's more of a Jacob Coker type of quarterback. But no, I totally get what you're saying, man. Is that again he's not Tua Tagovailoa, he's not Mac Jones, or even you can sit up here and say Jalen Hurts or even Bryce Young as far as stardom, as far as guys that can heavily impact the team. But these are those players like Jacob Coker, like Blake Sims, like Parker. You get Parker Wilson and obviously Greg McElroy. Those are not huge names, but those were quarterbacks that they got the job done. And that's Brian Robinson. He's a guy that again, he's averaging less than 5 yards a carry, which in the college game that's not good.
No.
But we all know what type of running back he is. He's a bruising guy. He's not the most elusive. He doesn't have the best feet, doesn't have the best vision. But he's a guy that you can give him the ball 25, 30 times a game. He's great, and he's phenomenal in pass protection, which is why I think Trey Sanders
That's why I think he's in there.
Involved.
And you're exactly right. You get, let me say this, Jarek, and just hold your thought. You get every single bit of everything from Blake Sims and from Brian Robinson. Limited on talent, but not limited on heart, not limited on leadership, not limited on effort, limited on talent. And this is the only situation that Bryce Young, not Bryce Young, but that Brian Robinson would ever be a super featured back at Alabama. Injuries, transfers and all this stuff. Like it just fell in his lap. He came back. He got a 6th year because of COVID. The year that Sims was quarterback, Alabama didn't have anybody else, and he got him to the college football playoff. But I was covering that team, and I always felt like there was the same thing. It's like there's just a limit. There's a limit on talent, and at least with Coker, he had more weapons around him. Brian Robinson's dealing with an offensive line that's inconsistent, and I think he's limited on talent.
Yeah, and I'll add on to this, and maybe this could be a good thing, but at the same time, maybe it could be a bad thing. At least for 2014, we were transitioning. We were getting off of the classic, Alabama style where they would just suffocate you to death, running the football, have 360-pound nose tackles and 300-pound linemen just all across the board and 280-pound linebackers. We were transitioning to a different era of Alabama football because of what Johnny Manziel did to us, because of what Trevor Knight did to us with these spread offenses. And we had just so many big guys that would tire out our defense that that Nick Saban knew he had to evolve. Otherwise he was going to end up like Les Miles.
Yep.
Where, again, that style of football was not going to play. For this particular team, and this could be the good thing about it, is that, maybe that with all these injuries and, with all the freshmen that are sitting behind, that we can transition to a new, again, this is if we don't get the job done, we can transition to kind of a new era where we start to have fresher players, freshmen, sophomore, guys that we've gotten 21, our 21 and 22 class more involved. Right. The 18 class, which again, if you look back at it, we had some great players, but it was also our worst class, right? It was also kind of our worst recruiting class out of the last 6 or 7 years. They're gone after this particular year. Well, that's if some of these players don't want to accept their sensory eligibility. Great point. They're gone, right? 2019, they may, so a lot of these players may come back, but then again, a lot of these players may end up going to the NFL, or maybe end up going to the transfer portal. So we're entering a new era for that. But here's the bad thing about it, is that for weeks, we have kind of complained that a lot of these younger guys should get a lot more opportunities. Guys like Dallas Turner, who was a third-string guy, waited until he got his opportunity, and now you can make an argument that our second-best pass rusher on the team. Damian George, who, had a rough game, I would say, but he did a lot more good things that Chris Owens couldn't do at right tackle.
Yeah,
right?
And he's only going to get better. He's only going to get better.
He's only going to get better. And that's the argument, right? When the Brockermeyer twins, from these receivers like Ja'Cory Brooks is the best blocking receiver on this team. And you're just wondering, why is he not more involved in these screen packages, right? Now he's doing it, but he's the best blocker in this team, and he can also catch the football, right? The IG Halls, the JoJo Earls who got hurt, but why wasn't he more involved in the offense, especially in the slot where he's a quicker, more dynamic receiver than Slade Bowman is? So that's probably is that a lot of these guys that are freshmen, sophomore players, the experience that they'll gain from this season transitioning to next year would have been absolutely incredible.
Right.
Just look at our 19 team. Look at our 20 team.
Yep.
We had nothing but freshmen. And then the 20 team, we won the national title because a lot of those younger guys had the experience.
Yeah. They still think they have a chance to win, though. And I mean, that's the look, I feel like I agree with you. And I've said this before. I think talent trumps experience. And the problem is Georgia's going to run into the same problem Alabama ran into last year. They're going to have a lot of guys in the first round. And that's probably why they're going to win the national championship. Now, they still got to do it. Anything can happen. You know, Alabama needs to go out there and be that thorn in their side. They need to be that speed bump, you know, like they need to be that roadblock. And Alabama's the team that has a chance to beat them. I don't think anyone else is going to be able to do it. Could be wrong, but I just don't see it. And at the end of the year, you know, they win, they're going to look like LSU from 2019 and Alabama from last year. They're going to have a mass exodus. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is, you know, what do you do when you win? You know, how do you stay motivated? I got to give Nick Saban a lot of credit because you mentioned it. This is the last year of his worst recruiting class of seniors. Then you had all those guys go into the NFL, and they're still number 2, despite losing so much talent. And I think that when he goes into it, he's looking and he's figuring out, I mean, it's not going to be a cakewalk. We're not going to blow out Arkansas. We're not going to blow out Florida. They could lose to Auburn on the road this week. It wouldn't surprise me. I hope it doesn't happen. I don't think it will, but it could. You know, this team is a little bit better than the pack, right? They're still better. And I think that's the balancing act that he has to do is it's like, you know, do you take the chance on playing someone that's a freshman without a lot of experience and then deal with their mistakes, but they're more talented? Or do you stick with the older guy that's not as talented and deal with the fact that physically they're just not as good and they're gonna get beat because of that, but they know what you want them to do? And I think what's happening now is we're getting to the point where he can trust some of these young guys. And, you know, we've got some big games coming up and hopefully like Turner, when they get in there, and Turner's been a beast, that you'll have some more guys step up and grab the opportunity, because that's the only way Alabama's going to win a national championship. That's the only way they're going to beat Georgia. And they may have to beat Georgia to win the SEC championship, and they may have to beat Georgia to win a national championship. Think about that in the same year.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And if you notice, look how many of our younger guys kind of played. And Nick Saban, you know, the tough thing, again, maybe as fans we consider it easy, but for a head coach, it's like I have 12 guys that were on that national championship team that played heavily. And, you know, do I risk it? Do I risk putting in the younger guys and kind of benching some of our older guys that were a huge part for our national championship team? Or do I, you know, what do I do? And I think what Nick Saban is realizing is that at this point of the season, he realizes that we still have a window, right? Despite of all our mistakes, despite of everything, all our coaches being criticized, we still have that championship window is wide open. And we're starting to see that he's pulling a Tua Tagovailoa, where he's now putting in younger talent. That Kool-Aid replacing Joe was a great decision. And honestly, I don't think that State isn't going to look back. I think Kool-Aid will now be the starter. I think Joe will simply just be there for depth. Will simply just be there for depth. But that's where Nick Saban's mentality is right now, where he's saying to himself, I have to play the best players. Mm-hmm. I have to play the best players that can give us an opportunity, instead of just relying on leadership and senior leadership or upperclassmen leadership, because that has not been working out so far.
No. Well, you're right. I mean, but that's what I'm talking about. Kool-Aid's going to end up being a lockdown guy for the next 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And in different season, he starts from day one. Different scenario, maybe he's, Dre Kirkpatrick, it's his job. He had to fight his way into that job. And I think you're right. And I think there's a lot more guys like him that are going to get these opportunities, maybe it's injuries, maybe it's guys that aren't performing for whatever reason, it's like that's what these guys like the Kool-Aids of the world are going to get in there and they're going to take advantage of it. Alabama brought in a bunch of first-round NFL guys with last year's recruiting class. They're going to do the same exact thing this year. And then those guys are going to get on the field and their talent, and then you mix talent with experience, and that's how you win a national championship pretty much every other year.
Mm-hmm. And it's crazy to think that even though we're talking about depth and we're talking about players that are just, they're not, they should be going, they're not good enough, how this team is still a national championship caliber football team. Like, it's just It's crazy to think that this could, you make an argument, it's one of Nick Saban's, probably maybe top 3 worst teams, and it's still a national championship caliber football team. And, if I was a recruit, right? If I was a running back, why would I not choose the University of Alabama right now? Because all these running backs are hurt. And even going into next year, a lot of these guys will probably not be healthy. So if I was a running back, I would definitely make the decision. Obviously, look at some of the, this is looking like a great cornerback class right now. Job is most likely going to the end. He might come back, but at the same time, he still might decide to go to the NFL. Jalen Armour-Davis most likely will be going to the NFL, right? We could be looking at a situation where we're definitely going to have a younger team next year. But I think the best thing that could happen is that we could develop a mindset or a mentality where we have a lot more youth, but we might develop a championship type of mentality.
Yeah. The crazy thing too, and and I'll let you comment on this and then move on. But all of these things that you see when you call in, I agree with you. I'm sure most of the people that are listening right now agree with you. We see all of these warts and these weaknesses and everything else. This team's going to kick themselves when they realize one day, if they don't win the national championship this season, just how close they are. And I guess that's what Nick Saban was talking about when he said entitlement. He was talking about us as fans being entitled, and he was talking about the players being entitled. This team is so close. I think they're clearly the second best team in the country, and I think they have the ability to beat Georgia. But will they? I don't know. The way the mistakes that they make, the shortcomings that Nick Saban says can be corrected, haven't been corrected. They're going to look back and they're going to hate the fact that they're the team that could have beat Georgia, and they're the team that could have won the national championship this year if they don't figure it out. Period.
Absolutely, and sometimes that could be the best thing. And again, this is why we have that 5th-year option. We still have the 6th year of eligibility. And right, if we don't end up winning a national title, I agree. These players are going to be they're going to look back and they definitely are going to kick themselves, because it's not like huge holes. It's things that can be corrected, things that these players can correct. But we just, for somehow, whether it's just entitlement, whether it's just selfishness, or maybe these players have just not worked as hard compared to what they were last year, for some reason, it just has not clicked. And again, it could be a good thing because a lot of these players could return, and a lot of these players will finally develop that mindset and that hunger to do it. But, maybe it could be a bad thing, because now a lot of our younger guys that are expecting opportunities, they might have to wait a little bit longer in order for them to kind of see the football field.
That's right. Well, great call, man. Thank you for calling in, and talk to you after the Iron Bowl on Saturday.
Absolutely, man. Roll Tide.
Hey, Roll Tide. Thanks, Jarek. One of our All-American callers from Buffalo. Let's go right back to the phone lines. I know you guys have been holding on. Can't wait to hear who this is and where you're calling from. Who is this?
What's up, Mick? This is Sean from Huntsville.
Hey, what's up, Sean?
Nothing much, man. How you doing on this great night?
You know what? I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying the back and forth. I love hearing what you guys think. The comment section has been blowing up. The only thing that I say in the comment section is just respect each other. You can disagree, go back and forth. I love that. Let's just respect each other as we hang out here on a Sunday night. It's my only rule. But I'll tell you what, this has been we're getting into, Sean, we're getting into crunch time. Every game from now on means something, period.
It does, man. And that's Jared had a great call. I agree with practically everything he said. My one thing and the one topic I wanted to bring up real quick was our middle linebackers. I went back and I looked at some previous games from Henry and Christian, and I did some comparisons through the games. And it seems to me, just to my humble eyes, that it seems like when we play the more physical teams, the teams that run downhill, the teams that come off tackle, it seems like our middle linebackers, I'm not sure if they start to avoid the contact instead of, sound gap integrity, instead of blowing up the guys. It seems like these guys try to avoid the block, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Which allows the running back to get extra yardage. I'm not really sure why that is. I'm not sure if these guys, I don't know, but I can assure you, without being disrespectful to those guys, there's no Reuben Fosses or Reggie Raglands on this team.
No.
Respect to Christian and Henry, but they are not as physical as one would think they are. They're just not. They're just not as physical. These guys don't really attack the line of scrimmage the way they're supposed to. And I think that's frustrating for Coach Saban. And then I started looking at it's unbelievable when you really think about it. This team has given up 29 sacks in 11 games, man. That is third. It's only two other teams worse than us in our whole conference. We're ranked 94th nationally in sacks given up. That is like amazing. We didn't give that much. We hadn't given up that much sacks in years around here.
Mm-hmm.
That's unbelievable to me. When you really, really, really think about 11 games, 29 sacks. Goodness, man. So big up to Bryce, because a lot of the times this guy's operating from, with the bullets coming at him. For me, I'm really, 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 interested in seeing how we go on the road to Auburn. Remember, guys, we hadn't won there since 2015. We hadn't won there in quite some time. And I do understand that. Yeah, you were there.
I was there. Yeah, I was there.
Yeah, man, and I understand this is not Gus Malzahn. It's not the complete, fastball offense. It's not the complete, every 8 seconds try to snap the ball. But at the same time, those guys will, just like LSU, throw the kitchen sink at us. They're going to pull out everything they possibly can to beat us. So we got to have our mind right, man. We got to have our mind right. We got 2 games for the rest of the season to really prove ourselves, not to the fans, not to the poll people, but to each other. The team need to prove it to each other. You need to go out and prove that you can play this game at a high level on the road. It also makes me wonder when I look at Georgia's team, when I do look ahead and allow myself to look at Georgia for a moment, because we do have to play those guys no matter what happens in the Iron Bowl. It lets me look at our starters that we have, say Jordan Battle. Jordan Battle and Lewis Seam, Georgia safety, was in the same recruiting class in 2019. Battle was the number 5 safety. Seam was the number 7 safety. You had Christian Harrison, the Kobe Dean, number 6 middle linebacker, Dean being the number 2 middle linebacker.
Right.
And it makes you wonder where, how, the development difference. It makes you wonder what is going on. What's these guys are very, very similar and like talent. What is the business with why these guys are playing so well and our guys seem to still be struggling with my new things? I don't quite understand that. What do you think about that, Mick?
I know what you're getting at. You're thinking maybe it's the defensive coordinator.
It's something.
It's got to be, right?
Really put my finger on what. Yeah, it's got to be. Tim Smith. Tim Smith is a great player, but he looks confused. I've seen him getting completely moved off the ball. Look at Jalen Carter.
Right.
They was in the same recruiting class, the number 5 and 7 defensive tackles. That kid is playing way better than Tim Smith. Why?
Yeah.
Why? These kids are very similar in talent,
Is it the hunger? I mean, is it we won so much these kids just don't take it for what it is? I mean, I don't know what it is, but it's definitely something.
Right.
I really, really wish we could figure it out these last two games. I think we'll be fine though, man. I really do. I tell the people, just at this point, we got to get off. We're going to fix it. It is what it is at this point. It is really and truly, it is what it is for the last couple of weeks. We just got to win the best way we know how, you know. Maybe in the off season, we can figure out what's really going on with this team. Is it the defensive coordinator? Is it the hunger? Is it NIL? You know, what is it? Is it something? I mean, what's preventing our young men from putting a great effort out there and having that hunger again? I can remember the old days when Rolando was here, how he would get at the offense when the offense wasn't doing right. I remember hearing Bo Scarborough on another show tell people that when he first got to Alabama, Ashawn Robinson and Jarron Reed would curse everybody out.
Yeah.
You know, and challenge them in practice. You know, it was a fight every day in practice.
Yeah.
Not a literal fisticuff.
No, I know what you mean.
But an offense against.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was competition.
Yeah.
Real hardcore competition every single day. It wasn't no playing around. It wasn't no, and the guys would police themselves. They would tell the coaches, Coach, if such and such is not playing well, get him out of here. Get him out of here. Respectfully, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, where did that go? Where did that go, Mick?
Well, what happens is that when you get that ring, and in college, you get 3 rings when you win the national championship, right? And you get all the gear, and, you know, everybody's talking about how great you are. And, and look, I work with the Cubs. I saw the same thing when they won the World Series in 2016. 2016 came, they won. 2017, it was like a big victory lap. And unlike Alabama, they have not been back to the World Series in one sense. And it just kept getting further and further away. I almost feel like it's a combination of things. I think that Alabama lost so many of those leadership guys to the NFL. I mean, you know, just game-changing talent. And then, you know, part of it is you it's hard not to be complacent when you're on top, you know, and the way that Alabama's dealt with that is that they've had so much more talent than everyone else in years past that they, you know, even their struggles are, you know, 20-point wins. This year,
exactly.
This is the lightest, weakest running back room Alabama's had since Nick Saban's been head coach. And it's because of injuries. The offensive line, you just talked about all the sacks. You know, Bryce Young's been great. He's as good as any. Without Bryce Young, Alabama's probably looking at 3 losses this year, maybe more.
Yeah, we'll be in trouble.
I mean, think about that. You know, he makes up for it. Sometimes he holds the football a little bit too long, but I can't nitpick him. He's been, I honestly, and you guys probably remember this from last year. Before I saw Mac Jones in that first game, I was like, hey, let's get Bryce Young the ball because, you know, I just believed in him. But then, you know what? I mean, Mac was amazing. I mean, he was ready to take that job and run with it. It's just that there's so many different factors, and a lot of it is experience, trying to figure out who to put in the games, and the young guys being ready to step up and play where they're not out there hurting us. And the team's still 10-1. Yeah, that's the crazy part about it.
Right.
I mean, like,
exactly.
We know. See, this is the problem, though, is that it's like when you watch a NASCAR race. The way that we're driving, we're going to be in a wreck before the checkered flag, right? You know what I mean? We're bumping, something bad's going to happen, and we know it's coming. And that could be Georgia, it could be Auburn, I don't know, but you see the same thing I see.
I do, and I just to address one of my guys in the chat that I tried to turn on to the channel, he was saying that the defense was young, and I was telling him that. No, sir. The defense is absolutely not young. You have to remember, when LSU won their national championship in 2019, that's when our defense was young.
Yeah.
We had like 4 or 5 freshmen in the lineup that game. DJ Dale was a freshman. Jordan Battle was a freshman. Ebogbe, Byron Young, and both middle linebackers were freshmen. Shane Lee at that time and Christian Harris. So remember, Jordan Battle took over for Jared Maiden because Jared Maiden got hurt in that game. So these guys have been playing since then. That was 2019 all the guys I just named have been playing since then. So this defense is actually a veteran defense. Actually.
Right.
It's just the opposite of a young defense. So hopefully we'll get it together, man. We have 2 games. I hope they preach to the players. We have 2 games to go out and show the world. I wouldn't be shocked if they put Ohio State over us, man. I mean, I really believe they're going to try to put those guys over us. They've been looking for a reason to get them up there. So I really believe, even though that was a horrible, horrible matchup for Michigan State, everybody know their secondary was awful, like you said. They go out and press the button on them and throw for umpteenth yards. So they're going to try to put them up there. I wouldn't be shocked if they try to jump over us. But we have an opportunity to go out, play our game for once. Just put a complete game together and get through this Iron Bowl and then, do what we do best.
Yeah.
But, Mick, man, I appreciate you guys taking my call. Roll Tide as always, and I'll continue to support.
Hey, awesome call, Sean. Appreciate it. Always great to hear from you. And, man, fantastic job up in Huntsville. And, Sean knows the same thing I know. Look, Alabama loses this game to Auburn. It's going to be, we're not going to be worried about that SEC championship game. We're going to be worried about all those Auburn car stickers and flags will be back up again. Everybody will be dusting off their Auburn hats and jackets that they're not wearing right now because they're losing. It always makes me laugh. All right, guys, look, I've been going for over, I guess, close to an hour and a half. So let's do one more call tonight. And I'm going right back to the phone lines. Like and subscribe those you hang out. Give us a thumbs up here on the Bama Insider YouTube channel. Who's this and where you come from?
Mick, what's going on? This is David from Nashville. I called in last week.
Hey, what's up, David? How's it going, man?
Hey, man, how's it going? I love how once again I'm calling after like Sean and Jarek and all these guys. I have great timing when I call in.
They're great. They are. Look, those are all American callers.
They really are, man. They know their stuff, man. It's amazing. I'm always like, why am I even calling? But no. So I wanted to follow up because you may recall you and I kind of ranted about 2 things for quite some time last week. One was the offensive play calling, and 2 was the fact that we needed to get more younger players involved. I would say we kind of went 2 for 2. I thought the offensive play calling was way better last night. There's still some things I would personally like to see, but I thought it was a whole lot better last night than it's been in weeks. And we are starting to see, at least, and Jarek mentioned this, we're starting to see some younger players kind of work their way into the system. Corey Brooks and Christian Leary and Dallas Turner seems to be pretty much a regular now. I thought David George did well. Kool-Aid came in. So, look, I'm not going to say that you and I were directly responsible for these improvements, but I'm not going to say that we weren't either. So
he heard us.
Just going on.
And they need to get more creative,
I really do.
They can still continue to be more creative on top of that, right? But a step in the right 100%. Direction.
No, I did, and I was like, "Oh, look, a slant pass that still exists." It was great. But no, I was pleased to see us get the ball out. I think, and again, it's true. We've all said it. We can't look ahead too far to Georgia. Arkansas had a great team. Auburn, I mean, you've got to go play in the Voodoo Palace where absolutely any magical thing can happen. But at least now we know for sure that we're going to play Georgia. And I think they know Bryce Young is going to have about 0.75 seconds to get the ball out of his hands. And so I noticed last night, I don't know if you caught, and tell me if you saw this too, it seemed like they were making a very concentrated effort to get the ball out of Bryce's hands as fast as possible. Was that just me, or did you see that too?
Well, I mean, I think that's something that they're working on every day. They have to be, because that's been, I'd say his biggest weakness has just been holding the ball too long. I mean, he had the one play, Nick Saban brought it up in the post game, where he, basically ran us out of field goal range, trying to run around and make a play, throw it away, and kick the short field goal. You know what I mean? Like, agreed. But he's been so smart. I mean, like, that's nitpicking. He's been the savior of the offense. I mean, look, without this guy,
100%.
Think about how bad. I don't even know if Mac Jones would do well with this offensive line, because he's not able to just run through and throw.
Okay, but not
like this guy.
Yeah. No. not at all. And what frustrates me is that what's going to happen, and maybe not. I don't know. I haven't checked today, but I feel like C.J. Stroud is going to get all of this just mad Heisman push for what he did yesterday. Meanwhile, I mean, he could have made a grilled cheese sandwich out there, taken a nap, and then thrown the ball, and the receiver he was throwing to didn't have anyone within a 10-yard radius. I mean, that was, and look, I'm not taking anything away from the kid. He's super talented. And I do think Ohio State has a good offense, but you cannot compare the circumstances that C.J. Stroud had to deal with what Bryce has had to deal with this year.
No. Well, look, the Michigan State was like the worst pass defense in the conference. And I'll look, Ohio State's a great football team. And in their league, they're going to kill Michigan this week, and they'll beat whoever they play. They're going to be in the college football playoff. And they're talented, but they're not going to beat Georgia. I mean, I'm sorry to say, if they run into Georgia, the national championship game would look a lot like last year's national championship game for them. C.J. Stroud or no C.J. Stroud, but look, I mean, C.J. Stroud's kind of found his thing, and I was just shocked about this part of it. Is that the headline was going to be Stroud takes over as favorite to win the Heisman. And then Bryce Young sets Alabama's single game passing record.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, maybe not.
Thrilled. I was thrilled because I did the exact same thing. I was, and I wasn't, I was happy for CJ Stroud. I'm glad he had a great game. What made me mad was just the ease with which he had to do everything he had to do. Now he did it, credit to him for doing it, but still. And like I said, you've got Bryce now he did have better protection last night. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying when they were sending the running back out, okay, let's see. Are they in zone? Are they in man-to-man? What are they doing? Are they blitzing? I at least thought there was some, I don't know. It seemed like a much better offensive scheme last night than it was in weeks before. I'm starting to think though that for the Georgia game, we just need to put like 9 people in the box and Jamison Williams out, and then let Bryce run around for about like 60 seconds and until he gets open and throw it to him. I'm thinking that's our best offensive strategy. But defense, oh man, our secondary. I have a question for you because I genuinely don't know the answer. And I agree with Sean. I don't think there's any fix to be had necessary, quote unquote, for this year. But what do you think, other than I know that the Pete Golding thing, I know everybody, we've all kind of, I think, spoken our piece on that. Mm-hmm. But what do you think the solution is for this secondary? I don't think it's talent. I think they're talented. Do you know the meme? There's like a photo and it's like a lady and just all around her head is a bunch of calculus equations and she looks completely confused.
Yeah.
Do you know, it's like that's our defense to me.
Right.
Like, or at least our secondary. Like that picture to me sums up our secondary where it just seems like they are in a constant state of confusion. And Nick Saban talked about just how hard it is to communicate to the defense. So call me crazy, but my solution is, why don't we find a different way to communicate to the defense? What is do you have an idea of a solution as a fan like I am? Do you see something that you go, I feel like they should just do this?
Part of me says, now I'm not going to make an excuse for the breakdowns, where the guys are wide open, but yesterday and Texas A&M and, not LSU, but Texas A&M and yesterday, the quarterbacks just made some really good plays. I mean, Calzada was under pressure a lot in that game, And in College Station, he just made like big plays. I was shocked, you know. I mean, that's like getting everyone's like best effort. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what they can do, honestly, except put Kool-Aid in and let him figure it out, you know, because he's going to have, Kool-Aid has more talent than any of the other guys. You know, it's like having Patrick Surtain, you know, like you put him in there, Dre Kirkpatrick, you know, like they're just physically, he's able to do things with his talent that other guys can't. And I'm guessing, to me, that's pretty much what you have to do, is that you got to get these young guys where they have enough experience where they're not going to be out of position and blowing coverages, but they can go in there and make plays. Look, Kool-Aid's going to make some. I think Kool-Aid might have a big game against Auburn. I think he's going to do a couple things with some interceptions, and I could see him with a pick six, something acrobatic. You know, people will be talking about Kool-Aid before it's all said and done, right? And the other thing the thing about Georgia is that is the problem that they have right now is everyone's telling them how great they are. They don't have to play 4 quarters of football, and there's a complacency that sets in. The Alabama's as battle tested as they've been in a long time going into these final 2 games, because they've had to play a lot of these 4-quarter games. I mean, think about it. They LSU and Arkansas. Hopefully that plays to Alabama's advantage.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it will. I 100% see that. And look, maybe this is just wishful thinking on my part, because I have kind of denied this for a long time, but I think I may be starting to see it, because I hear people say, oh, Nick Saban is just holding back his cards. And the reason why he's not playing these younger players is because he wants to unleash a bunch of surprise elements and surprise players on Georgia. And he doesn't want Georgia to see like what all the young kids can do. And then it's going to be, you know, kind of the national championship game where they just unloaded all their freshmen. And I've been saying I don't think that's the case. But I do start to see, I am starting to wonder, just looking last night at how I was like, that's interesting. I'm starting to see Ja'Cory Brooks a little, Christian Leary. I am starting to wonder if maybe, and you touched on this with one of the callers earlier, that Nick Saban, I think Jarek said it, is I think Nick Saban's starting to realize, yep, it's now or never, and let's start working some of these guys in. But I am starting to wonder, and like I said, maybe this is just wishful thinking. Do you think that when the Georgia game rolls around, all of a sudden we're going to see some of these guys come out of nowhere that we haven't seen a whole lot of?
I don't know.
Or is that just me?
Yeah.
Or is that just me wishing on a prayer here?
The biggest problem is the running back spot, because there just isn't anything there unless you figure out a way to let Milroe be a running back, which I would do. You know, I would do it. Yeah. I would figure out packages to get him in the game. The way that these teams have attacked Alabama with these fake punts and, you know, these risky blitzes and all this stuff that they're doing right now, I would be Alabama. Instead of being the king of the mountain, I'd be trying to knock Georgia off the mountain, you know, because I would go into that like I was a big underdog, because I think Alabama is a big underdog in that game.
I think you're right. Well, and you and I talked about Jalen Milroe. We had that same conversation last week. And I understand when people are like, look, he's your 3rd string quarterback. You could argue that he should be the 2nd string quarterback, and I probably wouldn't disagree with you.
Right.
You can't put him in as a running back if he gets hurt and if Bryce gets hurt, and then you get into all these if scenarios. And I do understand that if you're in game like 7, but by the time the Georgia game rolls around, as far as I'm concerned, that is, you just go throw caution to the wind. You can sit there on ifs all day. If this happens and if that happens, you go, well, what if we lose this game? And what if we could have won it? had we let this really fast, really big, athletic guy just run the ball. Like and he also has a threat to throw it. I can't imagine that you have a guy that athletically talented who seems to have a good attitude and seems to be working hard. I can't imagine that you don't play him in the game. I can understand up until now why they haven't, but by the time that Georgia game rolls around, my goodness, what are you waiting on?
Yeah. And you know what? The best part about it for Alabama is it's been a long time, and once they get past the Iron Bowl, it has been a long time since they're going to walk on the field and be an underdog. And I don't know what the point spread's going to be, but to me, I think Nick Saban does his best work when he's got the team's attention and he can tell them that the other team and the writers and the fans don't respect you. And maybe that'll be the formula that they need to surprise us all and play their best game. But they got to get there first. And I just look, this season would not be a success if they lose this game to Auburn. It just wouldn't. It just wouldn't.
And Auburn, nothing would make Auburn happier. I mean, they would just, as far as if you're Auburn, you go, look, there are three things in descending order that we would love to do: win a national championship, win the SEC championship, or just ruin Alabama's season.
Right.
And I don't even know, you could swap 2 and 3 probably. They're like, look, as long as Alabama is miserable, that's a win for us. So no, and I don't mean to take them lightly just by the only reason I'm really addressing the Georgia game so much is just because at least now we know for sure we're going to play it.
I'm with you. Look, you can talk about it. I mean, I'm not Nick Saban.
But I think we're crazy. I think we're crazy after all the stuff we've seen in that crazy building. I don't know if it's all the radiation coming off of that massive jumbotron they have there. I don't know what happens in that stadium, but crazy stuff just goes on there. So we don't need to take that lightly at all. And I know you've had I don't want to keep you on because I know you had a lot of calls tonight, and I appreciate you taking my call. But I agree. I will say this. I do still think, and we've all said it, I don't think it's a given that Georgia's just going to stomp on in and shove us aside and then just mosey their way on into the playoffs. I think Alabama's going to have something to say about that. Now, I think we're going to have to get some stuff sorted out, but I have to believe that Nick Saban's going to have some tricks up his sleeve for that Georgia game. I really do.
I hope you're right, because I've if I was him, I would. And look, I mean, don't forget, when Nick Saban's been an underdog, I'm going to give you a couple of great examples. One of them was when he was coaching Alabama in 2007 against Tennessee, the game that started the losing streak. Alabama had like 4 or 5 guys that were in trouble and got suspended for selling textbooks. I don't know if you remember this.
That's right.
He started the game with an onside kick. And Philip Farmer was still the coach there and got the onside kick, and Alabama rolled them. I mean, rolled them with a depleted roster. And then the other one was the national championship game in Glendale, Arizona. I was sitting next to
that's what I was just about to say. Yeah, and then don't forget the
onside kick to Humphreys.
Yeah.
So I would see it.
Yeah, and I would say this doesn't qualify as a trick play, but I look back at that national championship game where all of a sudden Nick Saban comes out of halftime and he's like, oh, by the way, here's Tua. Oh, and here's this guy Najee Harris that you haven't seen. Oh, and here's Alex Leatherwood. And it was just all these players that it's like, oh yeah, by the way, you don't really have any film on them that much. And so I don't know. I'm wondering if, I don't know, maybe that's just wishful thinking, but even if he doesn't, I still think if they put it all together, I think they can can get the job done. So I'm not giving up hope, and I'm sure nobody else is either. But I appreciate you taking my call, and I love the show.
Hey, thanks, David, man. Appreciate it.
Awesome, man. Have a good night.
Hey, Roll Tide, man. Thanks for calling in from Nashville. Great call there from David. And all you guys tonight. Hey, a couple things I want to talk about. Like and subscribe as you hang out with us here on the Bama Insider YouTube channel. We appreciate you being here. Tomorrow we got Monday Night Quarterback. That's at 6 o'clock. Tony Tsoukalis, the beat writer for the team, and I will get together. We'll have Nick Saban's press conference going into the Iron Bowl. Brian Harson's press conference. The players when they talk. We're going to put all that stuff on the site as well. Tuesday, the guru of recruiting, Andrew Bone, will be on. He'll tell you all about the latest in Crimson Tide recruiting, and including a class that could be number one when it's all said and done again. Kyle Henderson takes your calls on Wednesday. Takes your score prediction on Wednesday. And then Friday, the Bama Insider Tailgate Show, 6 to 8, when we preview the Iron Bowl. And that's really a radio show that airs across Alabama Saturday morning, but we record it right here with you guys. So you're like a built-in studio audience on Sunday night. So anyway, look, I had a lot of fun. Went a little bit longer than I was probably supposed to, but it's because you guys made it a great night, and I appreciate all of you guys for being here as we get ready for the Iron Bowl. Look, it's Iron Bowl week, man. Then we got Georgia. This is what it's all about. This is what you play for. You get rid of the New Mexico State games, and you take care of the Arkansas. This Arkansas game being before the Iron Bowl, I don't like it. I would rather Alabama play them right after LSU and then have the New Mexico State game, just so that you don't look ahead. It's just in a really bad spot for a look ahead now when you're talking about Alabama. But lo and behold, they took care of business, and that's what it's all about. Comment section, you guys were awesome again tonight. Whether you're here because you're an Alabama fan or you're just a college football fan, awesome having you guys going back and forth all night as well. I'm Mick Gillispie. Thanks for watching, guys. Talk to you tomorrow. Roll Tide.